Dan Illman, Mike Beer kicking off the late pick 4 at Belmont Park on Sunday with race number 7. It is the John Hettinger Stakes for New York-bred fillies and mares on the turf. And it's a race and it's a pick 4 bet that you can play with a DRF Bets account. Sign up, get 300% the deposit bonus only at bets.drf.com. Here's the field for the John Hettinger, and it's a pretty solid group of New York breds going 1 1/8 on the inner turf. Chad Brown as the 6-5 morning line favorite, and the number 9, 55, who was the beaten favorite most recently in the Yaddo, Mike. And I was wondering if you saw any kind of excuse in that race.
No, I didn't see necessarily an excuse for her, although I do think she ran pretty well in that race. She couldn't get there at the end. La Moneda, the horse that she just failed to run down there, has just been on a wicked tear for Tom Morley. She's been really, really good, and she had the jump on 55. 55 couldn't get her, and she also just missed getting by Lady Joan at the end of that race. Lady Joan, for what it's worth, I thought set a pretty legitimate pace in there. No excuse necessarily for 55, but she ran well, and she's way the horse to beat.
And there is no La Moneda in this race, and we know that 55 is very consistent. She's only finished off the board once in her career, and that was in the Grade 2 Sands Point against the likes of Uni, La Coronel, and Fault. Strong competition indeed. You're right, she's the horse to beat. She may need a little bit of pace. One of the horses that figures to set the pace was the Yaddo pace setter, the aforementioned Lady Joan, who finished ahead of 4 of these rivals that day, and you're right. I thought she set a legitimate pace, but I think that's what's made her most effective recently. They have shown the ability to just let her roll out of the gate, and she has responded with some big efforts in her last 3.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's played a big part in the turnaround in her form a little bit lately. And, you know, listen, I know she couldn't hold on last time, Dan, and it's not like there was a huge, I thought she went a legit pace in there, though, and I think in a lot of ways, she might have run the best race in the Yaddo last time. I mean, she ran really well in there and just got nailed at the end by La Moneda. I like that performance for her, and I like even more. I know there's another speed in this race to the outside. Maybe that denies her the front here, but she is perfectly drawn for this distance on the inner turf at Belmont. She is perfectly drawn to go rail. She's going to save ground early and either keep going or track that other horse. And I think there's a real chance that she could pull off. It would be a small upset if she wins. There's a real chance she could do it, though.
And you're absolutely right about the distance here. 1 1/8, there is just not much margin for error breaking from an outside post. Such a short run to the first turn. You're right, Lady Joan is perfectly placed. Perhaps 55 isn't, and perhaps the other speed that you mentioned isn't. We'll take a look at the Timeform US pace projector. They project this to be a fast pace, but if Conquest Hard Candy wants the lead, Junior Alvarado is just going to have to go on an absolute dead send. Now, she went pretty quick last time out over a good surface at Saratoga against weaker horses. I'm not sure she wants to really battle it out with Lady Joan, though, especially on a hustle going 1 1/8.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think I would worry more about the distance with her than anything else. I don't know if she really wants to go this far. Maybe she clears the front here, and maybe that makes her dangerous, but I'm just not so sure she's as good as the 2 horses we already talked about.
Munchkin Money, 3rd start of the form cycle. Brian Lynch, John Velasquez. Improved performance against entry-level allowance. Those are open horses last time out. I have to admit, though, while I think she's got a good tactical gear, I'm worried about the 1 1/8 for her.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think she wants to go this far. And she's another one who she's run some good races in her career. I don't think she's quite up to the level of a Lady Joan or a 55. Maybe she gets a good trip. Maybe she gets a piece of this.
4-time stakes winner Bonita Bianca tries turf for the first time off a rallying sprint win at Saratoga. She's by Curlin, 12% with first-time turf runners, but I just see old dirt on the bottom of this family. The Dam, a Grade 1 stakes winner on the dirt. Second Dam, multiple stakes winner on the main track. Dam's fold 5 turf runners, only 1 reached the winner's circle.
Yeah, right. I mean, just not enough pedigree for me. It's also interesting. I know she's run some good races going longer in the past, so she can get a distance, but it feels like she's really improved this year when they decided to make her a sprinter. That's where her form really turned around. Now they're going to stretch her back out on turf. I feel like they're just taking a shot.
How much of an excuse did Out of Trouble have last time out, the number 8? This is a filly that really likes to be forwardly placed in her races. She didn't break very well, and then she didn't run very well. But we know 1 1/8 is okay, and we always have to be concerned if you're playing against Brad Cox at a price. Here's Out of Trouble's formulator fact. Past 3 years, older turf routers in state-bred stakes races, 38% winners, a 235 ROI. Was she really compromised last time out by the lack of a break?
Yeah, I mean, it compromises her because I think she does want to be forward. She still didn't run well last time. Maybe she breaks better today. I don't know if getting out there and trying to be close to the pace actually works for her all that much in this race, because the pace will be there, but there will be other horses up there with her. And at the end of the day, Dan, I know it's Brad Cox. I know he wins tons of races. This filly's not as good as several horses that she's facing in the spot.
War Canoe earned a 92 buyer in the Diana 2 starts back, but I'll take that with a grain of salt. It was just sort of like she was sucked along harness style at the back of the pack all the way around the track, while an overmatched 47-1 shot. In the Yaddo last time out against Lady Joan in 55, Dylan Davis saved ground at the back of the pack, and I think he kind of had to just hold her up a little bit. I don't think it would have made a difference. I don't think she would have finished third, but she might have been a little bit closer. My only concern is if I want a closer in this race, I'd rather have 55 than War Canoe, although I know War Canoe is solid.
Yeah, that's the real problem with it that I had too, Dan. She's been in really good form. It's just a string of really good races where she feels like she keeps getting better. Before those last two races, I think it was 14 times in a row where she hit the board in her turf races, just keeps showing up. But she's a closer in a race with other good closers, and certainly in the case of 55, probably a better closer.
I'm interested in your thoughts on the 6, Feeling Bossy. Winner 3 starts back in the Mount Vernon over good turf. That day, though, she was just able to make the easiest possible lead. Now, while she's proven rating in the past, her most recent 2 races, I wasn't really thrilled with them. Finished behind Lady Joan last time out. It's Jason Service. It's a mare that likes to win races. I just worry about her form right now.
3 back in the Mount Vernon, obviously with a figure was okay, but she just got loose on the slowest of paces in there. In a lot of ways, 55 ran way better than she did in that race. And then her last 2 races are just really, really dismal. I don't know what happened to her. There are races in her past that would suggest she could contend with these horses. She just hasn't been running those races lately.
I gave Tizelle a little bit of a look in this race. I liked her seasonal debut at Aqueduct going a mile. She's not the greatest gate horse in the world. Maybe that'll actually work to her advantage because there's not a lot of pace. Now, the Mount Vernon, I have no idea what happened. She just didn't run very well. She didn't have the greatest trip, but I was a little disappointed again in that tough 2X 2 starts back. Last time out, she ran okay, but she never really threatened Lady Joan or 55.
Yeah, I agree with all that. She was really, really good first time back off the layoff this year. And since then, her form has not really held up. She didn't run that well last time. It wasn't a disaster last time, but she didn't really run that well either. She's a horse who's good enough. If she can show up and run her best race, she's good enough to make herself a factor in a race like this. She ran great in this race last year against 4-star Crook, but since then, it's been one good start and the rest of them not so good. We'll see if she can turn it around.
Let's take a look at our top selections for race number 7, the John Hettinger Stakes, kicking off the late pick 4 at Belmont Park on Sunday. You like Lady Joan. She's got a great post position, and while she has speed and has improved by being sent to the lead in her most recent races, she has shown the ability to sit off a horse in the past if need be.
Yeah, I think all those things are true. I'm not way against 55 in here, who is, I think, clearly the horse to beat, but I think Lady Joan has a reasonable chance to beat that horse.
I think at some point, Out of Trouble and/or Conquest Hard Candy might give Lady Joan a hard time, and that might be enough for 55 to run them down. She's admirably consistent. Unfortunately, there's no price. I'm going 9, 1, 7, and 5. Give me numbers.
I just like the 1 and the 9, basically. They're really the only horses I was interested in. If I use anybody else for a small amount, maybe like 50 cents in the late picks, maybe I use a little Tizelle and see if she can turn it around.
Race number 7 at Belmont on Sunday kicks off the late pick 4. Bet it with a DRF Bets account. Sign up. Get a 300% deposit match at bets.drf.com. Approximate post time for the Hettinger, 4:46 Eastern. Best of luck.